unlike most kids at the time, we just really wanted a pet dog,
Oh wait, hold
and
on.
eventually,
Hold on, Jay. I'm sorry.
oh,
I apparently need to redo one of my sources. Okay. Now you're now you should be good.
now it should be
It's
good.
not my
Okay,
fault.
and
Blame
we'll
OBS. They redo my
right.
sources every time I open it. It's stupid. I swear it's not my fault, guys.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Okay, kind of ruined my flow there, but okay, it's fine. Yeah, and we always wanted a dog when we were kids, and finally, really randomly, we had a puppy just sneak into the house one day. This was like back in the early 90s, and yeah, we didn't know where it come from. We didn't know where it had been. It just turned up in the house one day. Anyway, we the dog kind of like lived with us for a long time. My dad really didn't want a dog. My mum kind of really liked it, but complained about it all the time. And it was okay. Watching dad get irate about it was quite funny. Um, anyway, the dog grew up. It helped me and my brothers and sisters kind of like just live a really happy life. Brought a lot of joy to us, and helped us out in certain situations. Like when my little brother was getting bullied, the dog was there and it helped him stand up to his bullies and all of that kind of stuff. Just really nice, wholesome family stuff. Anyway, kind of got to a head one time when we had some friends over, and the dog kind of like caused a lot of trouble and stuff like that. So my dad decided to take the dog to the vet. And the vet, unbeknownst to us, was a bit of a shady character, and he tried to claim that the dog had bitten him, and that he put fake blood on his arm and all sorts of stuff. It was kind of crazy, but it turned out that he actually wanted the dog skulls to be able to test ammunition on, which is just a really weird thing. But he was like involved in the military and all this kind of stuff, and they wanted to test ammunition on dog skulls. Anyway, it all came to a big head, and they finally got the guy arrested and all sorts of stuff. And the dog lived with us for a long time for a happy and healthy life. But it was a real wild ride of a time back in the early 90s.
Man, I'm surprised your life, it involves so many dogs, Jay.
Yeah, yeah, it's just one of those things.
Quick shout out to Rob27 Shred, who subbed with Twitch Prime for 10 months. Says, "What's up, everyone? Good to see you, man. Haven't seen you around in a while. Haven't seen you around."
Yeah, it's good to see you, man. Good to see you, dude.
Yeah, as well as Hue, converted from a Twitch Prime gaming sub to a tier 1 sub. Thank you very much for that. And Geo
Nice.
subbing a tier 1 for 41 months and says, too many months.
Yeah,
Yep.
41 months.
I'll agree with you there. I'll agree with you there. Um,
That's a long time.
yeah, Jay had an echo. I know. I had it fixed. I fixed it pretty quickly, I think. I don't know. I can't tell if I'm having issues with OBS or like what's going wrong. I think Twitch
No.
and or OBS is just out to get me, but I think everything's good now. Let me know how the
Let's
audio is, of course.
let's let's just hope that Twitch doesn't
Look,
decide to distill my audio and
yeah,
remove it from the stream this time.
that was a nightmare. I have no idea why that happened. No idea whatsoever why that happened, and why it didn't happen the previous two shows or three shows or four shows. Um, I don't know. I've been trying to figure it out in OBS, but I just can't. If anyone is curious what the heck we're talking about, we recently did a dual build stream with the Tinned, which featured Liandron of Mechanisk, and it was an awesome stream. We had a really
It was
good
a great
time.
stream.
Yeah, it
So
was.
much fun.
Yeah, the builds went super duper well. We really liked them.
Yeah.
Leandrin was fantastic as expected, and it was awesome. Super informational, and we had a really good time.
Yeah,
However,
yeah. It wasn't a race. I mean, you definitely lost, but it wasn't a race. No.
what? I won. I don't know what you're talking about. But anyways, if any of you maybe have tried to check out the VOD, you probably noticed that you can only hear me. And to be honest with you, I have no idea why. It was totally fine during the stream. We weren't using the soundtrack by Twitch Beta. I wasn't even on the preview build that supports the soundtrack by Twitch Beta, and yet we still had issues.
Mm,
So I really
yeah.
have no idea why that happened, and I did reach out to Twitch support immediately. Because if it is the same kind of issue that happens with soundtrack by Twitch, in theory, their system that mutes it should also be able to unmute it. I think that does stand to reason. So hopefully that can still be rectified, but I'm not getting my hopes up. We still haven't had a reply from Twitch, and it's been almost a week, and that's kind of unfortunate. But life goes on. Hopefully this stream will be okay, and we'll get through this together.
Absolutely, absolutely. Static Age did guess it was Beethoven for the movie. Yes, that was the movie. That was the intro that I was doing. It was Beethoven. So well done. Some brownie points to you. No prize, but some brownie points. There you go.
I don't think I've ever seen that movie.
You've not seen Beethoven, dude? You're missing out. You need to see that film.
I'm missing out on a lot just because I never really watch movies.
Mm.
I'm
Yeah, you need to
I'm
fix that.
I'm the worst. I'm not good at movies. We need to start having movie. Remember we talked about movie nights a while back? We
I
should start doing
know.
talk
It was
back
like a
movie
year
nights.
ago as well. It was like at the start
Yeah.
of lockdown in
Well, we were trying to figure
2019,
out like
2020.
a convenient way to do it and have people join in, but it's
Yeah.
tough. It's tough. I think we'd have to have like a specific channel in the server for it. Have people join, but have people like be automatically muted, maybe. Otherwise, everyone will just
Yeah.
like at that point, are we just having a conversation or are we watching a movie?
hmm Yeah, have
I,
everyone automatically muted and then have like a text channel that you
a
can
text
chat
channel,
in, sort
yeah,
of thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. It'd be good. Movie nights would be amazing. Yeah, Huey's down for that as well. We should fix that up. We should definitely do
Yeah,
that.
no, we can do that. We can do that. It's just a matter of the best way of doing it.
Yeah, we can create like a watch along and do stuff like that, and yeah, it'd be
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. No, it could totally work. Okay. Anyway, so the audio is all good. It looks like fixed. Okay, cool, perfect.
Hopefully, I mean, we might
I
post the video of this as
I'm
part of
like
it, and
extra paranoid about this now because I
yeah,
do not want another scenario where we try to upload a VOD and one of us cannot be heard. Because
me too.
that's oh man, anytime I get like a PM like, hey, the VOD's broken after a stream that I feel really good about, I'm like, no, no, please, not again. Why does this keep happening?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's up,
Uh,
Vogon?
yeah, Vogon's here as well. I hear that that you might be having a chat with Vogon soon.
Oh yeah, yeah. Is that supposed to be a secret? I don't know. I'm
I don't
gonna,
know.
yeah, I'm
I'm
gonna be
like
chatting
teasing
with,
stuff here.
yeah. No,
I'm not sure I'm allowed to tease it by him.
well, you know, things happen. Whatever just happened. So yeah, I'm gonna be chatting with Vogon. Of course, Vogon runs the Thok podcast, which is fantastic. Jay was on there not too long ago, and I'll be doing a little interview there as well, and it looks like it'll be pretty exciting. So hopefully you guys can check that out. I think we're recording in the next couple days. I think on Monday. So no idea when the episode will be out, but it should be a pretty good time.
Yeah, we'll link it in the Talk Like server when it's out as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Gwilad says it looks so bright and nice in your place, Quakums.
Oh,
I must admit it does.
I'm slowly starting to realize how lighting works. All right, so I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Hopefully, it'll be even better next stream. I'm going to kind of restructure some things in my office and kind of adjust my lighting a bit, and I'm going to try to get a little bit better because I know, particularly on my build streams, it's kind of laughable. So yeah, hopefully, I can kind of get that worked out moving forward. But thank you for the comment. That makes me feel like I'm actually moving towards the right direction.
It does look really, really good. It does look really good. Like it makes me question my lighting now. So yeah, it's looking really good.
I think your lighting is way more interesting for this kind of stream. And I feel the same way
Really?
about like the mechs on deck guys, how like it looks dark, but they have a lot of definition and there's always like this kind of like nice kind of blue light fade or something behind them. I kind of want something
Yeah,
like
I mean,
that. Right now, I basically just
I
have like daylight lights that are just everywhere, which
right.
works
Okay.
for
Yes.
illumination, but like it doesn't really give you that kind of ambiance that you might otherwise
Like
get from.
it's difficult to show you, but like I have two lights, one that comes from either side, which I can control remotely, and then I have the which are near the camera, but they don't really throw a lot of light onto the back wall because of the way they're angled. But then there is like a mood light to the side of me. So if I dim this light out, you can see that the mood lighting is behind me.
Ooh,
Um, I mean,
nice.
we can go really moody. You know, there you
Well,
go.
you know, see
That's really moody.
that looks super cool. I want to be able to do that.
Um,
I like
yeah,
that.
and we can change the ambience of the light. So I can put like half the light on. I can make it really warm, or I can make it really cold. Put it somewhere in between, and then we can bring in the other light as well, and just fade it up and down as to wherever looks reasonable. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I'm still on the journey for good lighting. I have a lot of lighting now, but I'm on the journey for good lighting.
Yeah, I think the lights I have, I want two more, and I want to put them almost in the same position but behind and mount them from the ceiling. That's the next step, and then I'll have four of them, but really focus them on the build area underneath for build streams. That's the real focus.
Yeah, that's what I do. Whenever I watch streams like Teha types or like Lightning Diego, they always have like the best looking like desk camera lighting. Like everything
Yeah.
just looks so amazing, and I have no idea like how to get that, and if it's just like, do you just spend more money, or like what am I doing wrong? You know?
Focused lighting. Like what you want is you want really, really focused lighting. So you want diffuse lighting for around like here, so you can see like I've got the mood light. You can see it on my face if I lean back far enough, it goes purple. And then so you want like mood lighting in the background, diffuse lighting to light up like certain areas and kind of like give an ambiance to it. But then for the desk build space, you want a really, really focused bright light, and more light is better for cameras. So the more light you have, and it doesn't have to be like covering everything. You can have it quite low down and shining from the sides of the desk if you need to. But it'll give the more definition to what you're doing, a clearer build space. The more light you have, the clearer the build space will look. But you can still have them like a moody face cam. You just have to be careful with how you angle the lights to do it. I know the theory. I'm just crap at actually delivering on it. That's the thing.
Yeah. Nerdy says because the room is dark and they have a light right on their faces. Look on YouTube for low key lighting setups. Yeah, that's something I definitely need to try. I've spent a lot of time with the two lights I have on my desk. So I have like two like bigger, I don't know, studio lights, I guess you would call them, on either side of me. But then I also have like desk lights that are kind of clamped to my desk. And I used to actually just aim them straight at my face. And I got kind of annoyed with that just because of how bright it was. It was hard to see things on the screen with those lights just in my eyes. So I put them facing the other way, so they kind of illuminate my walls now. And so my walls kind of act as diffusers, which is kind of what I've been going for lately.
Yep.
Slowly but surely. Yep. Slowly but surely. AKB James says, there was me thinking Brian was rocking some sick bronzer. I don't even know what bronzer is. So I'm certainly not rocking a sick version of it, I assure you. Oh man, Nathan is also obsessed with that stuff in general. That's true. Nathan has a lot of the knowledge that I, well, to be frank, I'm just too lazy to obtain. But I mean, he comes from that background of, you know, photography and stuff. That was his passion and part of his work beforehand.
Really expensive equipment as well, like really, really expensive. Like I think my whole lighting and camera setup is probably about, I don't know, $4,000, £3,000, something like that. But Nathan's is in tens of thousands.
And to me, like, even that's insane, because like my entire lighting and camera setup is definitely south of $1,000. I mean, the camera. Well, I'm using a web camera. I'm not even using my my mirrorless. So like this is like a $400 lighting setup right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean mine's multi-purpose because I use it for office stuff and other things as well. But yeah, it's an expensive game if you get into it. I'm sure someone with more talent could get a lot more out of my equipment than I can.
Yeah. See, that's my thing. I just need to learn about this stuff because I feel like I know absolutely nothing about it. And, you know, as I say that, I realize we're probably boring people to death in Twitch chat right now, and we should probably start the show. Sorry about the rant, guys. Sometimes it just happens on live streams. But we're going to get this show started because we're a little bit late. I'm going to go ahead and roll the intro. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to a lovely Friday, and hopefully it is for you as well. This is Clack, and I'm your host, Quakens, and with me, as usual, is my juicy co-host, Juicy J.
Juicy. Wow.
Yeah, so, you know, I realize you've been getting pretty juicy lately, and I'm a big fan, so,
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I assume it's the beard that's doing it for you, because, like, this is relatively new still.
So it's the beard hat combo. The beard hat glasses combo, I think, just really does it for you. And it really, I mean, it does it for me, too, to be honest.
Gotcha. The hat is literally there because my hair is too long to do anything with, and the barbers are all closed here in the UK, so I can't do anything with my hair. But yeah,
so I'm going through this awkward phase where, like, usually I have a barber cut my hair and my beard, and I'm like really bad at doing it myself. But I've been doing the beard myself, and that's why it looks so bad. But I'm thinking about growing my hair out. Because I've never really done that, and I've kind of always wanted to, so I'm kind of just stuck with this awful, like, awkward stage of it looking like I'm a hobo right now. But, like, I want to grow it out, so try not to make fun of me too much.
You should grow out. You should grow out.
Yeah, no.
Like my hair is, like, down past my ears now. That's how long it is on the top. The sides are quite short, but I can like, fold it over, and it's down past my ears, so... Yeah.
I'm gonna look stupid for a while, but I want to try to grow out my hair and see what happens. You know, just for something different.
You look great. You should do it.
All right. Vogon
Do
says
you know what it
Brian with
reminds
the
me
heavy
of?
metal look. Yeah, I'm gonna be like a headbanger, hair metal.
It reminds me of that film, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which is based on the comics by
Yes,
Brian Lee O'Malley. Have you seen that film?
I
Where
love
where
that film.
it's an amazing film. Like, it's so
Yeah.
good. But every time anyone mentions his hair getting shaggy, he cuts away from him and it cuts back and he's wearing that hat. That's me. That is literally me right now.
Oh man. Yes, that's a classic, man. I actually often say like bread makes you fat. I say that like
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
time.
yeah. Yeah, one of my friends once told me they were going vegan. I'm like, oh, have you got your vegan powers yet? And oh, I love that
Yes,
film. So
yes.
good, so good.
God, that's great. Anyways, we're really good at ranting today, apparently. But we do actually have some topics at hand. So we're, as the title probably suggests, we're going to be talking a little bit about Keyset profiles. We're going to be talking about our favorite profiles and why. We're going to be talking about some other profiles, maybe why we don't see a lot of other profiles get used quite as much. That kind of coincides with the popularity of GMK and Cherry profile, as it were. So, talking a little bit about that. Of course, we're going to be opening it up to Twitch chat as usual. So join us along in the conversations. Tell us what your favorite profiles are and why they're your favorite profiles. Talk about some profiles that you maybe want to try but haven't yet, and your thoughts on the topics that we're talking about as well. So join along for the ride, guys, and yeah. Good stuff. So where are we starting today, Jay?
Well, I think we should probably start by explaining what a profile is, in case anyone's watching this and isn't
Good
quite sure
point.
what we're talking about. That's probably the first thing to do. Define what a profile is and what a sculpt is as well, because they're two very different things.
I'm like looking around my my keyboards trying to find examples of other profiles, and I'm just realizing right now that I have Cherry profile on everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I can do like a brief example. So we can see that here I've got an AEK profile. I'll try and show this up to the camera. This is an AEK profile. So you can see that the keycaps look almost flat on top if I hold it at the angle as the keyboard would be, but you can see that they follow a curve. So that's an example of one profile. And we're talking about if you hold this flat to your desk, the keycaps here have a curve that goes upwards. You should be able to see that. You can also see it mirrored in the side of the board. If you compare that to Cherry profile, you'll see that Cherry profile has a bit more of a step to it, and the keycaps are also leaned over. So if I hold it flat, you'll see that the keycaps have a step rather than a curve, and they're also leaned over apart from the top row, which is pretty much flat. And using bleached on this doesn't help because the keycaps are really bright white.
No, I think that actually helped accentuate it. So basically, the keycap profile is the physical shape and curvature or sculpture rather of the actual caps as a set. So as you're using it, good stuff. So let's talk about first what our favorite profiles are and why. And I think this is going to be pretty easy, and obviously join us in chat as well. But we kind of want to expand upon this and why Cherry, for example, is probably going to be the driving force behind most preference in the hobby. I love it. Jay loves it. Most of you probably love it if you tried it. I think it's safe to say it's our favorite profiles, as well as probably a lot of yours. But we kind of got to thinking, why is it like that? And why, do we see that as such a dominant force? And why have all these other profiles kind of taken a back seat? And, a lot of these profiles are profiles that a lot of people in the hobby probably haven't even heard of, and a lot of people probably haven't tried either. So, I'm a big fan of variety, and I think you should, as a keyboard enthusiast, definitely try as many things as you possibly can. But I think a lot of us kind of get to Cherry and we go, oh, well, that's really nice. I like that. And then we just kind of settle there. And, it's nice if that's what you want and that's what you like. But, how would you know if you like something more unless you tried it? So, yeah, I think
so
that's where we're starting.
What have you tried, Brian? What have you tried? So if you had to name three profiles that you like to use, what would you pick?
Okay, so Cherry is going to be first. Obviously, it is my favorite. But like I do mention, I do love variety, and I try as many profiles as I can. And I've honestly tried a pretty staggering amount of profiles. No pun intended, actually. But I'm pretty proud of that one. So Cherry definitely at the top for me. Like you can see behind me, it's what I have on almost every single board that I own. It's just what I use. It's what's comfortable for me ever since I've tried it. So that's definitely my top profile. But next is actually going to be Cat. I think Cat profile is really, really good. And I know that the factory is maybe, having too many delays getting the actual caps out, and some people are upset by that. But I think as the product stands, as the plastic keycaps go, I think they're absolutely wonderful. I think they feel great. I think they sound great. I think the sculpt is just right. It's not too tall. I don't like really tall profiles. I always stay away from SA, even though I've used it quite a bit. But SA profile, for example, just too tall for me. But Cat is kind of that nice middle ground where it has kind of more of a mild sculpt, similar to Cherry, but it's a little bit taller, and it kind of has those that it has a nice conformity to your fingers, and I really appreciate that. I think my third favorite profile would probably be DCS, which might be kind of a surprise to some people, but I think DCS is really underrated, and I think one of the reasons I like it so much is, admittedly, probably the hipster in me just likes it because it's not very popular at all. But it's really nice. I think it has a very lovely sculpt that's similar to Cherry, but has a little bit more of an aggressive row 4, similar to Topra profile in my experience.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of that personally. A lot of people might argue that the keycaps are too thin. That doesn't bother me. I think it's a defining feature and not necessarily a symbol of quality, and I implore you all to feel similarly about that. But yeah, it's a lovely profile, and it's nice to use, and it's kind of a bit of a throwback in our community back to a time when DCS was a lot more popular and GMK wasn't on literally everyone's desks.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a time when DCS was the only thing in group buys, like really, really early days, and then people started to realize that, Signature Plastics had other sculpts available, and then SA sets came. But I remember some really early sets. DCS Twilight, DCS Hyperfuse was really early on. Yeah. DCS OTD Red Alert as well. I think that was Signature Plastics, I think, when OTD did a keycap set. So that's going back quite a few years
That's
there.
pretty old school, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think if I had to pick three, I think Cherry would be the top because it's just a really solid profile. I think my second favorite would probably be MT3. And one thing we didn't mention as well is there's two different types of types of keycap as well in terms of the actual shape of the top of the keycap. There's a spherical, which and the easiest way to explain these, if you imagine having a bowl of sand that's completely flat and level, and you drop a ball into it, that ball's going to leave like a curved dip all the way around, like a crater, and it's going to be round. That's kind of like what not to pronounce that, but that's what a spherical keycap feels like. It's like the outside of a circle is being pressed on the keycap, and it's concaved into the keycap. Yeah. There is also the secondary type, which is like Cherry and everything else, which is more of a barrel shape, and it actually goes from left to right, and it has a curve left to right, and it's more like if you dropped a barrel in that sand, and that the shape that barrel would leave. That's kind of the secondary type. So there are two different types of how you can have the top face, the flat edge on the top of a keycap sculpted. So it's either fully concave and curved all the way around like the bottom of a ball would be, or it's barreled across and it's spherical and what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, I can't think of the word. There's a word to describe it. I can't think of the word.
For sure. I would also, just because I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it at least once during this stream, we do have profiles that are incredibly unpopular, like G20, for example, which actually kind of doesn't really follow either of those rules, and rather it's just mostly really flat across the entire board. And if you've never typed on a full board of G20, I will tell you right now, it's one of the most awkward feeling things to ever type on, and it is, at least for me, was not very pleasant, but I can see why it's not a very particularly popular profile in our community. It's been a long time since we've seen a G20 set, and I'm positive we haven't seen very many.
I'd be surprised if we see any more. But yes, a couple of guys have posted out it's cylindrical. That's the word I was looking for. I couldn't get the word out, but yes, that's exactly the word. So some examples of cylindrical would be AEK, GMK, or Cherry. DCS is cylindrical. Some examples of spherical would be MT3, SA, DSA. They're all spherical profiles. Hyper as well, yeah. Leading on to which, my second favorite sculpt would probably be MT3. And the reason I really like it is because it really reminds me of those old beam string style boards that, maybe grew up on a Model M or something like that. but in a more modern and compact form factor. It really hugs the fingertips and it feels comfortable to type on. It feels like your fingers are always in the right place. There's no pressing the keycap on the sides or the edges. It's always right dead centered, and your fingers slide into the slots on top. I really, really do like that feeling. It slows me down as a typist, but it makes it more enjoyable to type on. The only problem with that is I'm not a huge fan of how MT3 sounds. I think the PBT caps sound a little bit better than the than the ABS caps, but I really do enjoy it as a profile. And then third, I'd pick DCS as well.
Nice.
DCS is underrated, and the fact that you mentioned that people think it's thin, therefore it's bad, that's such a misconstrued argument.
That's probably one of our community's most biggest misconceptions. As odd as that sounds.
Yeah. I know, like the thickness of keycap isn't necessarily a negative thing. Sure, thicker means more plastic. Thicker means more, material. You're getting more for your money physically.
It's the same.
I don't know.
It's roughly the same argument as a heavier board being more premium. And how that used to be really the case around the time is, I almost hate to say it, but like the era of like where the Fjell really started to take off and gain a lot of popularity when it first launched. A lot of people loved that board and thought it was super good just because it weighed 5 pounds. And most other boards
ridiculously heavy.
It is very heavy, and that's great. And I'm not saying it's a low quality board, because obviously it's not. It's one of the highest quality and best tray mounts we've ever had in the hobby, and it has a lot of love and popularity, and I love it as well. But it's not premium because it's heavy.
Yeah,
that's not the whole point. And I feel like in the same vein, DCS is not bad just because it's not 1.5 millimeters thick.
Sure, I 100% agree with that. So we talked about some of our favorite profiles. Is there any profiles you dislike? You can't pick G20 because you've already talked about that.
I can't pick G20.
No, you can't pick that. You have to pick something else. Is there any profile you dislike typing on?
I really hated XDA. I got to be honest. I remember this was many years ago. I actually had a sample of XDA from Clack when Clack was a really big vendor in the community. Big being relative to the times, of course. But they were running an XDA set that was really cheap. It was actually like very inexpensive, which I liked. But he sent me a set to test out, and I was like, man, this is just not good. If anyone doesn't know, XDA is the kind of flat version of MDA, which being is a little bit more sculpted, and it's kind of gone through some other names and then misnomers like WinMix or there was another name for it too, but it's slipping my mind. Hopefully chat can remember. But yeah, XDA was just bad. It reminded me a little of G20 because unlike DSA, which does have a little bit of that kind of spherical nature, you can kind of get the different texture on top of the cap. XDA wasn't like that. It was just flat all throughout the top, and the keycaps were a bit wider as well, it seemed like. So it felt like you were just kind of typing on something that was just completely flat, and there was no like real verticality to the keycaps, and it really bothered me. It felt very awkward. So yeah, I haven't used it since.
That makes sense. I think if I had to pick one that I didn't like, I'd probably choose DSA. It just feels unfinished when you're typing on it. It just feels like there's something missing, and I can never put my finger on it why. I'm not the best with flat profiles anyway, but DSA is probably the worst one. The tops are slightly too rough. The keycaps just feel unfinished when you type on them. It's like typing on some parts that you've 3D printed and they're not quite finished printing. You've just whipped them out of the printer early. I don't know. It just feels unrefined and unfinished. That said, I think that DSS would have probably made fourth slot on my list, which is basically a sculpted version of DSA. So maybe that's what I think is missing. Maybe it's the sculpt part that's missing for me. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, isn't kind of a side note here, but for DSS, I thought you didn't like it due to the texture, or is it actually the profile as well?
No, I like the profile of DSS. Okay. The issue I have is the texture. So I actually purposefully put them on the buffing machine with a little bit of polishing paste to get rid of the roughness on them. I actually have the set on my Noxry 268 at the minute. I think it's the Dolch set, and yeah, I just put each keycap on the end of like a stick that I 3D printed for solely this purpose, and I just polished on the polishing wheel until they were smooth on top and shiny.
Yeah, I want to address a couple of questions in chat just because, well, there's no real reason not to. This is a discussion, right? So,
Yeah.
Koha is asking, who has the best Cherry profile excluding GMK? And the reason I want to touch on this is because we actually kind of are going to be covering this a little bit in the show.
Later on,
So,
yeah.
yeah, we're gonna be getting to that. We're gonna be expanding a little bit more on that. Moving over
Mm.
to Vogon, he asked, do you feel that we don't like flat profiles because we are too used to others, i.e., a person coming from a typical office keyboard, like the flat keycaps, would maybe be okay with them? That's true.
Maybe.
I feel like membrane keyboards, rubber dome keyboards that we often see that are cheap, mass produced, and very accessible, and you often find in offices. I feel like there's no real standard on what their keycaps can be, and it's kind of more just whatever the
Yeah.
actual OEM slash manufacturer has decided.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, like, I wonder if someone who'd just used like a standard Apple keyboard that comes with the modern one today on the scissor type switches, if they just used that and then they came over to like DSA, would that be okay for them? Or even G20? Do you think they would actually like that? I don't know. It's hard to say.
I'm, I'm
It's hard
waiting for
hard to be
the
to be objective sometimes.
I'm waiting for the community resurgence of G20 because it would be the biggest meme the community has ever seen. I guarantee it.
You've said it now, and I wonder if we'll see an interest check in the next week for a G20 keycap set.
Anyone that genuinely runs a G20 set will be my hero.
Yeah, I'm not sure it would have the popularity that
No,
it would need to get
no,
made,
it
to
would
be
almost
honest.
certainly not even make MOQ. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like it's. But at the same time, you got to remember the last time a G20 set ran was like 2015 or 2016. Didn't sell very well. Most people here, I bet anybody here that's entered the hobby in the last few years has probably never even heard of the G20 profile. It's so
I think what
uncommon.
sets there are. Okay, so there is actually a couple of sets. There's Stealth, which you can actually buy right now on Pimp My Keyboard, which is D20, sorry, G20. Um, but there was one that had flags or something all over it. Do you remember that one, Brian?
Flag? Do
Was
you
it
mean
semiotic or something like that? Yeah,
symbiosis?
semiotic.
Oh, semiotic.
Yeah,
It was the
semiotic.
it
Yeah.
was the alien themed, right? Like the alien franchise theme. There was an alien franchise theme G20 set.
Yeah. So I wasn't sure what the history was. I just remember the keycaps vaguely looking like flags, and yeah, I've just found it. Yeah, if actually it was ZS Lane who was behind it, who's been very well known for doing other things, the SA Rocketeer and Mercury keyboards, for example.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh man.
I'd completely forgotten about that.
God, this is
Man,
this is like we look at this now, right? And we're like, what the hell is this? But to be honest, this is super cool looking back on it now. Like this like you wouldn't like use this happily and be like, this is a classy, elegant key set for my nice high-end board. This is like a collector's
yeah.
piece. Like you put it on a board and you stick it behind you like in a display case because this is just super cool. Oh,
Yeah.
you posted link in chat. Perfect.
Yeah, that was 2016 when that ran, October 2016. And there's still people in 2017 posting pictures of it. That's kind of crazy.
I love it.
Wow.
I love it. Like it's so silly, but it's really cool. It really is. 10 Peaches in chat says, my first custom of the Tofu was XDA, and I was really happy with it. After using GMK, I can't go back to flat profile. And I think that's the thing for a
Yeah.
lot of us, too. Once we use Cherry, it's just like, well, that's really quite lovely. It's maybe the perfect height and the perfect sculpt, and it just feels really comfy for me. And then we just get used to it, and then we just buy a lot more of it, which is totally fine. But, I think it's good to explore the other profiles as well.
Do you think the fact that we all tend to like GMK keycaps and Cherry profile, do you think that that has a negative effect on other profiles? Do you think that because we like it, we just then buy that and don't buy anything else and don't try anything else because we don't want to move away from something that's good? Like, do you think it's a bit of a self-perpetuating cycle that, oh, I like Cherry profile, so I'll buy GMK, so I won't look at this XDA set and I'll just buy GMK? Do you think that's like a self-fulfilling prophecy there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as humans, just like biologically, we want what we know. We're often afraid of change, and we like to be comfortable. And if we try cherry and we really like it, then you start to ask yourself why buy anything else. And we have this kind of not necessarily a stigma in the community, but profiles like cherry, manufacturers like GMK, we kind of see them as like the pinnacle of our hobby. So we kind of just, whether consciously or not, we kind of just assume, I feel like, that cherry is like the pinnacle of keycap profiles in the same way that
Yeah.
we think that GMK is the pinnacle of keycap manufacturers. Neither of which are necessarily the case, but I feel like we just kind of pigeonhole ourselves into this own kind of mindset, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the more hype gets built up around the key sets that run, which tend to be more GMK, means that more people want to design a GMK keycap set, which means that there's more cherry proliferation, there's more, people buying cherry profile keycaps at that point.
Yeah.
But I guess the real root of this, and this is open to everyone, including chat as well, is why is cherry such a big profile in the community? What made it the dominant profile? Why aren't we talking about G20 as a dominant profile, or SA as a dominant profile, or DCS? All things which have had popularity spikes in the past, SA specifically. But then now it is nearly always cherry profile. What do you think is driving that particular factor? Why is it that we fall back to cherry all the time?
Yeah, this is a question I've been kind of thinking about for the last couple of hours, but I can't really find like a good answer, and I'm hoping chat has some good ideas as well. I just keep defaulting to the sense of we're just so comfortable, and we put cherry and GMK on a pedestal that it's just become the standard, for lack of a better term. And obviously there are lots more profiles and manufacturers out there, but this is where we just feel safe. This is what other people are doing, and we want to be, part of the club as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of theories on it myself. I don't know if any of these are necessarily true, or I don't know how we'd even prove it if they were. But for me, growing up, a lot of keyboards that I touched after the late 80s, early 90s were then suddenly cherry profile. So when we started to move into the whole kind of MX popularity era, and we had compact boards at school. I can still remember the exact boards. In fact, I have one of the exact boards we used to have in school because I got it from the school. And it has MX blacks in it. It's from like the early 90s. It has MX blacks in it. It has cherry double shot keycaps on it. I just wonder if there was something around that sort of time that made it become the standard, because it was used in so many different applications. Like, you can find so many different branded boards out there that are actually cherry made, designed, built, produced, and shipped, that just have been rebranded. High Screen, Desco, Compact. There are so many different brands out there. Cherry did the whole range themselves as well, and you have the whole, the G80, the G81 series, right up to the G83, which, whilst not technically MX compatible, were still the same sculpt keycap. I just wonder if it was the fact that it almost became standard in the workplace, standard in schools, and it kind of proliferated from there. And we just have this kind of inbuilt memory for, almost like a muscle memory for what feels good, because that's what we learned to type on. I don't know.
Yeah, Tempest in chat actually brings up a really good point that I completely overlooked. He says, because people think of mech, they think of Cherry as a brand. So when you see Cherry profile, you assume that because Cherry has this epic, legendary lineage with mechanical keyboards, you would assume that Cherry as a profile would also be like at the pinnacle, just like a lot of people assume that Cherry switches would be at the pinnacle. And just like switches, their keycaps aren't necessarily the pinnacle either. It's just what we know, what we like, and they've had a patent on so many things for so long that now that we're finally, as a community, starting to really explore things aside from Cherry, both in terms of switches and keycaps and other products, that we're starting to break free from that. But it's kind of tough because you're totally right, Tempest. I think that when people see Cherry, they just assume it's like the OG, the big authentic, and it's going to be amazing and it's going to be legendary because that's what the Cherry name is.
Yeah,
I don't think that's
it's
necessarily
interesting.
the case, but...
Because the point I have in a notes document to talk about this is actually like a counterpoint to my part, what I've just said around the standard being Cherry from being in offices and schools and things. And also because of you think of Cherry as the Mac, but you also then come back, Tempest, and you mentioned OEM. Now the really interesting thing here is that so many manufacturers use OEM profile over Cherry that probably is the industry, as in mechanical keyboards outside of the hobby, just general mechanical keyboards for gamers or whatever else you want to badge it on. It probably is OEM profile, and even some vintage boards has something close to OEM profile on as well. So the question comes down to, why isn't it OEM that we're pushing for? Why is it Cherry profile and not OEM profile if that's more proliferant in the real world than it is just in the hobby? It's a really interesting fact, and I'm not sure I have the answers. In fact, I know I don't have the answers. I couldn't put my finger on why it would be the case, but I think there's something to the whole Cherry was kind of the standard in workplaces and schools. But then, since that point, OEM has become the dominant profile just in general for mechanical keyboards. It's really interesting why we haven't picked that up in the hobby. And there are very, very few keycap sets that run in OEM profile, unless you want put-in keycaps or something like that. In fact, I only have one custom keycap set that's in OEM profile, and that was an EVA set that was done by Feng back in 2016. So, yeah, why did we turn away from OEM?
I don't know. To be totally honest with you, I completely hate OEM. So I'm glad that OEM isn't popular among like the custom keyboard community. But it just goes to show you, it's one of those things where popularity doesn't necessarily equal better. So obviously OEM is super popular, and I feel like I should have done a lot of more research before this episode. Now that I'm thinking about it, because I'm kind of curious. How did OEM profile come to be? And I can only assume that Cherry had this kind of lock on what their profile was, and they probably thought it to be super super good and the best in the business, and they like their switches, they just had a lock on it. So OEM profile maybe was something a little bit supposed to be similar to Cherry, but maybe like more open sourced, if you will, so that way a lot of other people can get into it as well.
So the reason why OEM is preferred amongst I'm going to say gaming keyboards is Don Burrows Flows actually mentions this as well, but the reason it's there is because the early keyboards, they wanted to use the switches north facing because it was easier for them to do that for whatever reason, and then they put LEDs in them, and Cherry profile doesn't work like that. You end up catching the LEDs, or you end up catching the switch housing or whatever with Cherry profile, so they needed a tall keycap on the inside to be able to accommodate LEDs and switches facing the wrong way. So I mean that's kind of why a lot of the big manufacturers use OEM keycaps. But the question is, why did they go in that direction, and why haven't they come back in the other direction? Now we have much smaller LEDs, and PCBs are easier to design than ever before, and you can move switches around, have north, south facing, whatever you need to do. Why did they never come back to something that is more preferred? I don't know.
I mean, imagine building a keyboard with dedicated physical LEDs that you have to install in 2021, Jay. I feel like everything's SMD RGB now because it's just so easy.
Yeah. Do you remember 2016 and SIP sockets? Man, that was a rough time.
SIP sockets. That was. What's funny is I remember using SIP sockets for the first time, and obviously I at that point in time I had already built mini boards with LEDs without SIP sockets. LEDs are a nightmare to work with, by the way. They're really obnoxious. SIP sockets were like the coolest thing to me. And looking back on it now, it's so stupid. So if any of you maybe don't remember what a SIP, I keep saying SIP, but SIP socket is rather, it's pretty dated today. You don't really see them anymore. But basically it was just this little almost extender, if you will, that you put inside your switch where the LED would pass through. And basically what it does is the SIP socket itself has legs that go down into the PCB for your through-hole soldering, just like your normal LED would. But it has female ends coming up from the top of it, so that way you can basically hot swap LEDs in and out. So you could individually hot swap LEDs. You had to cut your LEDs to a specific size to fit into the SIP sockets. You had to cut them just above the little nubs. I remember this so clearly, like it was yesterday, Jay. And looking back on it now, it's so stupid because now we just have like RGB PCBs and like it's normal.
Oh man, I know. Yeah, like can you imagine if someone sent me a bill and said, "Can you SIP socket the LEDs?" I'd go, "No,
Mm-mm.
no, I'm not doing
Nope.
it. Full stop.
Won't
Not
do it.
happening."
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Refuse.
I suppose the modern day equivalent is mil-maxing PCBs, right? You're using mil-max sockets or hole-tight sockets or whatever to turn a PCB into hot swap for switches. I
Yeah.
guess that's the modern day equivalent.
Yeah. Those were just about as fun as Switch stickering. And I don't mean films, I
Oh
mean
man,
actual stickering.
stickering, yeah.
Which was
Oh man,
films are so easy to do. Stickers
yeah.
stickers were absolutely a joke, and they did way less than
Oh,
films too. Way less than films. Films are much
I
more
remember
applicable.
stickering some switches, and like I got one sticker and it was just slightly out of place, and no matter what I did I couldn't remove it, and I just had a switch completely wasted. It was the first time I'd ever used them, and I just gave up. I'd done like 10 switches, the 11th one or something like that, like only a small number. It was like ruined and I couldn't fix it, and I ended up just having to buy more switches because I just couldn't do it anymore. I just gave up. Just gave up.
Yeah, yeah. Rob27 Tread says hearing SIP sockets gives me building PTSD. I totally agree. I would never do that again. Never. It was such a waste of time. But it was so cool when it first came out because you were just like you could hot swap LEDs. That was such an insane concept.
Yeah, yeah. You could even do it while
And we weren't.
the PCB was plugged in. I remember doing it myself when the
Yeah.
PCB was plugged in.
That's how
I have
you
no
test
idea
them.
if that's like recommended or not, but I
Yeah.
did.
I don't know either, but that's how we test them, right? Like you could tell.
Yeah,
if an
which way
LED
round
was-
does it go?
Yeah, yeah.
I've trimmed the legs. I can't remember
Well,
which way
yeah.
it
After
goes.
you cut
Oh,
them,
it
it's
doesn't work.
hard.
Turn it round. Oh, it works now. They're great. Yeah, that was what you did.
Oh
That was
man.
how you tested it.
Yeah, you can actually
put
tell the
them with the keyboard
orientation.
on.
You can tell the orientation from the LED itself if you had like really good eyes.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
but
I think it
man,
depended on the LEDs you used, but yes, you could. Yeah, yeah.
that's
I remember.
crazy. What a different time. And we're not talking about RGB here, guys. These were single color LEDs. You couldn't do RGB.
Yeah.
You couldn't do RGB really. You'd have to have a specifically designed PCB for it, which in the custom
You,
space it just didn't exist.
there used to be those two-pronged LEDs that actually cycled through colors. You had no control over them whatsoever. They just
Hmm.
cycled through the rainbow of colors. I do have some of them still. I've got a bag of them somewhere. So you could have RGB, but there was no control over it, and you'd have different keys doing different colors at different times. That was really weird. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh man, it was crazy. I remember when people used to like, they would have like a GMK set, for example, and they would have the LEDs to match like the alphas, then other LEDs to match the mods. Oh man,
yeah.
what a different time. Very exciting though. What if we've come so far? Anyways, we've kind of trailed off a little bit here. What the heck were we talking about? Why Cherry? Why did Cherry not proliferate instead of
Yeah.
OEM? What
And
think about what the world would look like in the keyboard world if we all
oh
just
man,
if Corsair sold keyboards that just came with Cherry profile instead of OEM. That'd be an interesting, very fun world.
it would. I mean, can you imagine how big GMK would be now if that had been the case?
Oh my
Like if just
god.
one thing had changed. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting as well because like a lot of the old keycaps we use, they are technically still GMK caps, even though they were never manufactured by GMK because they use the original Cherry tooling, and that's why it's called Cherry Profile because they used to be manufactured by Cherry, but now it's GMK, and I guess that's the other point to talk about here. What happened to the GMK? What happened to the Cherry tooling, and why are GMK producing it now? So the kind of history here is that eventually Cherry decided to sell off all of their manufacturing capability in terms of keycaps. They've since actually started to bring some manufacturing capability back in house, but that's a relatively new thing. And at the time, they used to make PBT keycaps that were die subbed, and they sold off the tooling for that. There were rumors that had gone to other manufacturers such as BSP and things like that. But I think after having a chat with Pudsey a couple of years back and Photech, that was kind of all put to bed, and it turned out that no one really knows what happened to the PBT tooling for OG Cherry die subs. But we do know that the double shot tooling, the ABS double shot tooling, is what GMK uses today. Now, over the past few years, GMK has used those molds excessively because they've produced a ton of keycaps. So they've likely used and replaced most of the original molds that Cherry had. But a lot of the machinery, a lot of the designs, a lot of the specifications, all still fall back down to what Cherry built back in the whenever they designed it. I assume it was the 60s when they actually started to design the keycaps, but I have no real knowledge of that. And that all happened and moved over to GMK, and now we're in a position where GMK owns the old Cherry housings, the old Cherry patents for keycaps and everything else, produces those keycaps in house. And we've kind of just taken them to a crazy level. We've gone from what things used to be in 2016, where we ran a few key sets a year, to a position where at any given time there's at least 10 keycaps running.
Yeah, absolutely nuts. Um, I want to touch on something in chat. Um, Rabbit Sensei asked, "Did I miss anything?" First, yes, you did. But figuratively, the devil says, "You might have missed my comment, but this might be a case of manufacturer momentum. Once there is tooling in place, unless they have a big reason to change, it probably makes more sense to stick with OEM, since the average buyer doesn't really care or isn't aware of the other options." That's completely true, and you got to remember, like the kind of people that are buying like a Corsair keyboard, for example, or like any keyboard that has OEM profile. That's probably the only profile they're ever going to use in their life. They're never really going to get to try, Cherry profile or, something like MT3 or CAT or DCS, etc. Like, that's never going to cross their mind. They're just going to get those keycaps. They're going to think that's the normal keycaps because, they are more or less the standard. And then they're going to move on with their lives, and that's just what they accept without even knowing that they could like something more or something could be higher quality, which is kind of unfortunate. And that's, something that we can kind of spread in our hobby as well. That's how we rope people in, get them to try other things that they're going to like better.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, you're absolutely right on the manufacturing part, though. Why spend money to improve something if your customers are never going to notice the difference, right? Because you just wouldn't, from a business perspective, you would not make that decision. We're just nerds, geeks, and enthusiasts, and we prefer slightly different profile to OEM, and that's why we buy so many GMK keycaps. But you're absolutely right from a manufacturer perspective, and I completely agree. We should give a rounded view of that rather than just our feelings and views in the hobby. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Dutcom earlier says, wow, again, an EU-friendly stream time. This is truly a privilege. Yeah, this is something that, we're trying to work on a little bit more, is trying to get a stream time where more people can watch. I realize that for some people, maybe at work in America, this is not the greatest time, but I think it's a better balance than what we were doing before. So thank you for watching. Anyways, moving on. He also...
Pokemon... Sorry, I was just going to say, Pokemon Kid actually has a good point. He says, did Cherry have a patent on Cherry profile back in the day? I assume they would lock down the profile like they did with Switches. So they had a patent on the Switches, which expired, and that's why we saw the rise of Gator in like 2016, 2015 sort of time, because that's when the patent for the Switches expired. I believe they had one for the keycaps, but I have no idea when that expired. But one of the things we're going to talk about is other manufacturers of Cherry profile and when that started. So I don't know. It's something I'd have to research to give you a straight answer on, unless anyone in chat knows.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it goes without saying, guys, that we don't always have all the information, and you should never assume that we do. A lot of this is just discussion, so just keep that in mind. But if you guys know things that we don't, put them in chat so we can all be a little bit smarter by the end of the stream.
Teachers chat.
It turns out that's how you learn. It's okay to not know things. It totally is, and learning things is powerful. Crap, where was I? I was going to read a comment, but now I lost which comment it was. I'll look for it as we get back to the discussion. Anyways, so we talked about we're starting to talk about rather what the kind of future of GMK and Cherry profile looks like. You talked about not just the sheer number of sets that are running these days versus back then. Maybe a lot of people might not remember, it was back in 2016, 17, 18, somewhere in there. GMK was not the dominant keycap manufacturer in our hobby. Cherry was not really the dominant profile. It was much more of a mixed bag, I feel like, back then. And Essay, actually, Signature Plastics Essay in particular profile, very tall spherical profile, really started to become the the big profile in the community, and that's where we first started seeing queues backed up to a year and a half, even in some instances. I think it even might have gotten to 2 years for some sets. And a lot of people don't really talk about it, but I think that a lot of the reason we see GMK and Cherry Profile so popular today is because people stopped running SA sets because they didn't want to wait a year and a half or 2 years for a set. And so SA really started to decline in popularity around that time, and GMK really started to pick up. Obviously, GMK sets existed before that, and we were using them. But like I mentioned, it was much more of a mix. We saw DCS, we saw DSA, we saw SA. We saw what else was at that point in time? Sheesh, I don't even remember.
E20.
No, we didn't really see G20. But my point is, we had 3, 4, 5, 6 profiles that we rotated between pretty regularly, and until SA really started to take that throne of most popular keycap profile. But people didn't want to wait, and I totally understand. And I feel like that's really how GMK and Cherry Profile really started to take off in our community way more than they ever had before, and that's kind of where we are now. But, like a lot of you guys that are buying Cherry Profile sets, GMK in particular, the wait times are really starting to get up there. So many sets are running, GMKQ is looking quite ridiculous. And, we do know that they are adding more machines, but we don't know exactly when they're going to have all of this up and running and have all their personnel trained and have all of this actually really positively benefiting our community. It still could be a little while, and that's totally fine. But this is kind of where we're heading, I feel like, with GMK, is these really long queues at the moment. And something that we talked a little bit about before stream, we have so many other Cherry Profile manufacturers these days because of this that have much shorter lead times. And, I feel like we're kind of only just now starting to explore using these other manufacturers, and we're starting to see them kind of rise a little bit more. We've had EPBT for a while now. Obviously, that's kind of a tried and true. There's much older studios like Imsto and BSP. Nowadays, CRP is gaining a lot of traction, and we're starting to see other things like Novel Keys PBT, Canon Keys PBT, Infinikey. Like it or not, I know it's kind of a controversial thing, but Infinikey is getting really popular as well, and there are others too.
Yeah, I mean, we've just started to see the rise of Geek Arc as well. They're starting to come out with some really cheap PBT cherry keycaps that are pretty good. I think it's really interesting. And just jumping back to what you said about SA being the huge popularity that it was, I remember waiting 2 years for a set of SA Commando, right? 2 years, and that was acceptable.
That was
at that
normal.
point.
That was expected. Yeah.
We're now at the point where we're reaching that kind of saturation in GMK in terms of timeline in GMK and Cat, which are two of the popular profiles. We both love Cat, we both loved Cherry Profile and GMK, and we're at that point where we're starting to see similar timelines to what turned people away from SA in the past. But if we started to see a turn to SA again, I'm not sure that Signature Plastics could keep up with it, because the demand much then was a lot smaller overall in terms of number of sets and number of actual keycaps to manufacture and MOQs and things. So I don't know if we move back to SA if Signature Plastics could keep up. But it is interesting that we're starting to see more Cherry Profile manufacturers come out of the woodwork and into the hobby now. And as you said, all of these are. We've had EPBT for a while, but they've just started to branch out into double shot ABS as well. They're starting to rival GMK stroke Cherry at their own game. We've got JTK, who does double shot Cherry Profile keycaps, which is arguably GMK's biggest competitor in terms of quality. I know there's still some problems there, but they can also do triple shot. And I guess whilst GMK are ramping up their machines, does that mean we need to start seeing GMK do things differently and start to introduce new techniques that they can't do today? Do we need to see triple shot, or hell, even quad shot from GMK as we go forward?
Yeah.
I don't know.
See, I think this is a really deep topic too. It almost begs the question, and I want people in chat to think about this as well. Is double shot? I know ABS double shot is generally speaking the most preferred style, like in our kind of custom keyboard hobby. But why? is double shot ABS actually the future of keycaps? Because I feel like in terms of like actual science, I feel like PBT die sub is much more of like a modern style of keycap versus something like ABS double shot, which we've been doing for a long time. Obviously, PBT die sub has been around for a while too, but you know, is double shot ABS? We know it's what most people absolutely love in our hobby, but is that like the future of keycaps for us? Because I feel like there are probably better ways to go about keycaps. Because look at how many issues double shot ABS actually incurs. People think, and
Yeah.
I'm leading into this because Don's Broflow asked a question. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't Don's Broflow. It was King Friday the 7th who asked, who do you think is number 2 in terms of quality and potential? And I want to address something because I think a lot of people get a misconception about GMK and think that GMK is absolutely perfect when that's not the case. GMK has a lot of issues, some sets more than others. They have legend issues, they have stem orientation issues, some keycaps are crooked. And the list goes on. We tend to put them kind of on a pedestal and at the top just because for the sake of argument,
History.
they're probably the best in terms of cherry profile quality, but they are far from perfect. They have lots of flaws, and oftentimes it's never talked about or addressed, and I think it should be. With that said, I will say that other double shot ABS manufacturers, like you brought up JTK as well as Enjoy PBT, kind of starting to break into the game, they have even more issues. So there really is no like true rival, I feel like, to GMK in this space right now, and because of that, we don't really see a whole lot of fixes, I feel like, because everyone's kind of in their own bracket at this point.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, and there's also the fabled mythical true double shot PBT keycaps that are very very rare. You will see double shot PBT keycaps on the market quite often, but they're not double shot PBT. They're a PBT keycap, usually infilled, either laser etched and then infilled with a shot of POM, or with an actual true double shot POM insert. The only manufacturer I know that does true double shot PBT, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, and there's another one out there that I don't know of, but the only one that I do know of is Leopold, and they make some amazing caps. And if I had to put one cap on the market against anything else, it would be those true double shot PBT Leopold keycaps, because they're fantastic. They are absolutely, in terms of manufacturing quality, the cream of the crop. But they're very expensive to manufacture. The yields are low, and they won't do custom colors unless you buy 50,000 sets, which is more than what the hobby tends to do these days.
That's a lot of sets for our hobby. We're just happy to sell a couple thousand sets on some designs.
Yeah, yeah. I think die subbing has come a long way as well. If you look at a lot of the early die sub sets, especially when it's reverse die sub, they tended not to be great, and that is significantly improved. Like, there is no perfect die subbing technique, because it's not. It's always going to be slightly fuzzy. It's always going to tend to have the chance of being slightly offset and not being perfect. And it's also always going to have the issue of down the sides of the keycaps where you're doing reverse die sub, or five-sided die sub as it's sometimes called. You're always going to have that kind of stretching, because it stretches the ink, the plastic layer that you do. So sometimes it's going to fade. You're never going to have perfect die sub keycaps, but that can be improved through quality control and practices and different techniques and things as well. But what I will say is that the die sub keys that we've seen from Cat have been absolutely phenomenal for the most part. Like, a lot of their legends are really crisp and really clean. I know we've had some alignment issues and things like that people have spotted, but I've always been really happy with Cat PBT keycaps.
Yeah, same. Vogon brings up a really interesting point here. He's asking, would you also say that the strength with GMK double shot is in the font they use?
They do look good, right?
Font is really overlooked, I feel like, in a lot of key sets. Most people, care more about profile and color. But font is something really interesting as well, because I totally agree. I feel like when you look at a GMK set, for example, it kind of invokes this feeling of like lineage. Like, it's classic, right? Like, it reminds you of that classic cherry keyboard, like the exact ones that you were talking about earlier, Jay, when you were kind of picturing it in like, your elementary, your primary school education. Buckling spring was what was used in my school, but I remember cherry boards as well back then. And it's nostalgic, right? It looks clean, it looks classy, like it looks like what we grew up with. When
It
you
does.
look
And
at
just a point on that, Anarchy does say in chat, it says technology to make double shot has been around since typewriters. And I just want to say that is on my document. I did put it in there. Brian can confirm that I do mention early electronic typewriters and word processors. We just didn't mention it. So you are right, Anarchy, and it was there in the forefront of my mind. And it's absolutely in the document. Brian's highlighting it right now.
no,
So if
it's
he says
not.
it's
It's
not
not.
there,
Jay's
he's
lying.
lying.
Jay's lying as usual. No, he had it. He absolutely had it. We apparently just didn't touch on it. But that's
Yeah, we
okay.
missed that.
That's how the doc works. Sometimes we just we lose our spot. Um, sheesh, where was
Sorry,
I?
I interrupted. I've ruined your train of thought. I
It's
apologize.
okay. It's okay. This is how live shows work. Where was I? Cherry, classic, lineage. That's how we grew up.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So when we look at a lot of other sets that have different fonts, it just doesn't really invoke the same feeling. It looks just new or different or out of place because it's not what we're used to, and we haven't gathered that limit of comfortability on it like we have on some of these other sets and fonts like GMK, which is classic cherry effectively.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of dye subsets, right? You can actually change the font because it's effectively printing the font onto the keycap surface with some heat sublimation. You can change the font easier than you can with double shot. For double shot to have a new font, you need new molds. There is no question about it. You need to create a new mold for the insert that creates the legend on the keycap. There is no other option. You have to do that if you want to have a different legend. The same with languages. Someone mentioned languages in chat and everything else like that as well. Yeah, if you want to have different language support or anything else, you have to do that. Now, we're very, very lucky, and we did touch on this earlier, that GMK is in a position where they have thousands of molds. And when I say they
Way
have
more than
thousands,
people
I
think.
mean thousands of molds for different characters, for different legends, for different size keycaps, to things that we just don't use anymore. They have them, and they're replacing them all the time as well. So, for example, their A key mold, it is almost guaranteed to not be the same one that Cherry was using when they were producing it. It's the same tooling, the same specification, but I am almost certain that mold has been replaced more than once since old Cherry days. But they have all of this information and a lot of things, and you'll remember, Brian, when we had Andy on the show, he talked about this, that they've still got stuff that's actually hand drawn in terms of the diagrams and everything else for how the molds were created and the specifications to make them on the old Bridgeport machines and everything else. They actually have all of this documented. Some of it's printed, some of it's handwritten, some of it's hand drawn. It's all there, and they have all of these molds that they inherited from Cherry, but they just don't have a digital representation of it to be able to use it.
And
But
that's
to change, sorry, go on.
no. I was just gonna say that, and that's something we talked a lot with about Andy is trying to have a catalog of sorts of everything that they offer and examples of it. How cool would that be if you were like a keyset designer and you want to make a keyset, but like you want something a little different? So you go to GMK or Unikey's website or whatever, and you open up a catalog of everything that they can offer with their keycaps. You're like, okay, I want these legends, I want these sub legends, I want these colors or whatever. Like you just can kind of like pick and choose the things that you want and see the other things that people have and have not used, because like you mentioned, there are thousands of molds, thousands and thousands. And what do we see? We see like hiragana sub legends, katakana mono legends, which is cool. Don't get me wrong, but like we haven't even come close to scratching the surface of what GMK can offer. And I feel like that's something to really keep in mind if you're a keyset designer, because if I were designing a keyset and I wanted to do something different, that's where I would start looking. It wouldn't be colors. It would be, what else can I offer that we've never seen before in our community, but GMK has.
Yeah, but it's hard, right? It's hard for them to, because a lot of these were created years and years ago, before computers were even a thing, really. These were used in word processors and typewriters and things like that originally. So you have molds and designs for molds and legends that are hand drawn, and I mean like technical drawings for a mold that has been sat in storage for 30 years plus, 40 years, 50 years, to then create a digital version of that. No one actually knows if the mold will even work or if it'd have to be replaced. They'd have to do some tests with it to see if they could bring it out of storage and just put it into production. It's really interesting. So they have to do all of that whilst they're making keycap sets, which they can't keep up with as it is, to try and create a catalogue of stuff that we could potentially want to use. Now, I've asked GMK for stuff in the past as part of my role as a vendor, and I've said to them, do you have this? And they're like, I don't know. we'll go look for you. We'll go find out. One of those was Big Ass Enter, the old BAE style keycap. I asked them a few years ago if they had that, long before I was a vendor. Actually, it was just 2016, 2017 time, and they said, I don't know. We'll find out. And they went away. They came back a few weeks later and they said, yes, we still have it. We still have it, and we still have the legends. We still have the mold. We can make those. We actually have two styles. We have a skinny version and a fat version. And it was great. I never ended up using it, but it's there. But there's questions like that we could pose to GMK. Do you have this? And then let them go and see and find out. But it all takes time and resource for them to be able to do that whilst they're trying to produce sets, and for them to be able to document a catalog or a serialized list of what they have. That would be a big job. It would be a huge job.
GMK was not prepared for the explosion of our hobby alongside a pandemic. I think that's definitely part of it. OMG Kitties Yay, great username by the way, is asking, does GMK provide a mold brochure so designers can see what's available? That's kind of what we're talking about now. Unfortunately, they don't, but how cool would it be if they did? King Friday 7th has a really interesting suggestion that I kind of wouldn't mind seeing. He's asking, create Honderbait, but legends, one from everything they offer. Oh my god. Could you imagine how rough that would be to look at?
Yeah, like I can't remember which set it was, but I know someone went to them a few years ago. I can't remember if it was Zondat with Korean Beige or if it was whoever ran the Greek set. I can't think who designed that now. It's gone from me. It might have even been something else. Yeah, but
the recent add-on kit.
Yeah,
I think that was
I can't
Lightning.
remember who designed it. Lightning. Okay.
I think it was Lightning.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I can't remember if it was one of those or if it was something completely different. But they went to GMK and was like, "Oh, I'd like to do this." And like, "Oh, we have the molds for that. We already have that. We can do that straight away because we have that."
Yeah.
And it just it kind of throws people off because we just don't realize how much they actually have. And the worst part of it is GMK themselves don't know because they've never got around to cataloging it all. They just use the 10% of whatever they have that is really popular, and that just took off. And then they create, of course, all the new molds for novelties and everything else that we do. They're replacing molds all the time. Molds don't last an infinite amount of time. They have to be replaced every so often. And I think if you look at some old GMK sets, there's some modern ones, you can see where some molds have been changed. So it's a whole ongoing process, but it would be really nice to get a sneak peek in that catalog. It would be really nice.
Yes, absolutely. Grog says, time to get back to work. Have fun, everyone. Have a good night, man. Enjoy the work as much as you can. Hopefully it's something you enjoy. Since we are kind of coming towards the end of this particular discussion, I think it'd be a good idea for us to kind of list off some of the profiles that we're aware of, and obviously in chat you can chime in as well if we've missed anything. But I feel like because we wrote out this list before the show, Jay, we'd be remiss if we didn't actually go over some of these, because I'm a little impressed with when you actually write it down like this. It's crazy to think how many profiles there actually are, because we're just so used to seeing like Cherry and SA. But there's
I know that
many
this
profiles.
list isn't exhaustive as well. I know that there is more than what's on this list. I probably thought of 5 or 6 during the course.
This is what we put together in 1 minute before the show. So here's a basic list of profiles, but obviously this is, like Jay mentioned, not exhaustive. We have Cherry, commonly misreferred to as GMK. GMK is not a profile; it is a manufacturer of Cherry profile. We have MT3, we have Buckling Spring, we have OEM, Cat, Cam, DCS, SA, DSS, DSA, G20, Topra. They have a normal profile and they have high pro. SS2, which is Leopold's profile, that's Step Sculpture, which is pretty similar to Cherry, very mild, kind of low profile. It's very nice. If you like Cherry, you'll probably like SS2. There's Hub profile, which I think did finally, after a lot of issues, made it to reality. There's Novel Pro, which that's not out yet, right? That's still incoming.
It's not. Yeah, it's upcoming soon, I think.
We've seen a lot of early different prototypes and samples of it, but we don't have a real production of that. There's NP, which is a new profile that we've started to see on KBD fans recently. There's AEK, and there's XDA, and there's MDA. And then people in chat already putting things. BSP is not a profile as far as I'm concerned.
No, it's manufacturer.
That's a manufacturer.
But there is HSA. Yeah.
There we go. I'm gonna keep this list. I'm gonna add some
OSA.
to this list. OSA.
KTK. What's KTK? I've not heard of KTK. See, this is the thing. There's so many out there we just don't know. What's KTK? Someone show me some KTK keycaps.
I have not heard of KTK. You'll have to let us know.
Yeah,
what
I
that
want to
is.
see.
HSA, yeah, that's a good one though. OSA for sure. Kate,
Kate,
that's right.
Rama's Kate,
Rama
yeah,
has
it's a
two
great one,
profiles
yeah.
actually. They have Kate and they have Grid.
Grid, yeah.
What else is there, guys? I'm just trying to put a little list together here, just for the sake of this. Tex ADA. There you go.
Yeah. Man, there are so many out there.
Yeah,
so many out
it's
there.
crazy that we missed all these.
SA does have the row 3 variant. Yeah,
SLK.
you are correct, Squillad, yeah. Oh, SLK, yeah.
Yeah, we got
MBK.
We got DSS. What is MBK? Is that real?
No idea, but apparently it's a thing. Marthnek says, are we just listing 3-lettered names? A, B, C. It's interesting because that's what it seems like. Glacier, New Chuck, Low Pro. Yeah, they're actually in group buy right now. I saw on mech boards earlier on this week. I'm really tempted to buy some just to see how they are. But yeah, but then I know that the Pokemon Kid mentioned earlier on that there was a company called Devlin in the UK that used to manufacture keycaps. Yep. They still do actually, and they used to manufacture keycaps for the community. They don't do that. They just do them for point of sale machines now. They actually turned down the community because we were so demanding over what we wanted. But they had like 3 or 4 different profiles that they used. I can't even think what they were, but they were another manufacturer with their own profiles and own sculpts and everything else.
My bad, it's KLK. Yeah. The Geek Hack thread is for KLK Luna. I have yet to hear of KLK. I haven't heard of MBK either, which is apparently a sculpted chalk profile, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Grid, yeah, we got that. But like, look at this though, guys. Like, look at how many profiles we have here, and I'd be willing to bet, and I'm one of them too. I haven't tried all of these. I'd be willing to bet that almost everyone in chat has not even tried half of these profiles.
No, I would put money on it that I've not even tried half those profiles, and I've owned.
Yeah, I haven't tried half of them either.
Yeah, I guess where this leads to though is our final question on the seat though. If Cherry had never existed, if Cherry profile had never existed, which profile would be the dominant one in the hobby right now? What would we all be using? What do you think we would be using in the hobby today?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious.
This is chat. This is what we want you guys to tell us. If Cherry profile had never existed, what do you think we would be using in the hobby today? Yeah,
I'm definitely curious. I think, oh man, it's hard to say, but I think the easy answer would. Oh man, do you think SA would have been a standard just because of how popular it got in our community?
Maybe. I want to say DCS.
Jay, I want you to imagine a world where the SAQ never got past 4 months. Would GMK be would GMK be as popular in our hobby if the SAQ was always reasonable?
I don't know. I don't know. Probably not. No, it probably wouldn't have been because SA was huge. It was the only thing that people talked about. I remember seeing interest checks for GMK keycaps, and people would convince them to run it in SA. They would be convinced by the community to run it in SA instead, and that happened.
Do you know why? I hate using SA. I'll be honest. A lot of people know that already about me. I hate using SA. I'll type on it for a couple minutes, and then I want to get it off my board. However, I think the colors on a lot of sets come out way better on SA than they come out on a lot of GMK sets. Have you seen Carbon? GMK Carbon side by side with Carbon is night and day. SA Carbon looks monumentally better than the GMK version, in my opinion. Not even close. Really good example of that. The colors just pop so much more on a lot of SA sets that I feel like GMK, while I much prefer to type on Cherry Profile, just can't quite get the same kind of color and finish. I feel like it's so vibrant on a lot of the SA caps. SA Carbon looks amazing. Carbon there.
Do you want to know what the real changer is for that one? The real keycap set that's running both sculpts but looks better in SA. Do you want to know what that is? The one that looks most different.
Most different? Ooh.
Yeah, or the one that looks way better. I mean, in SA, the one that looks so much better in SA than GMK. Do you want to know which one it is?
I definitely think Hyperfuse is up there, but I'm definitely curious.
Chocolatier. SA Chocolatier is a god tier set. The GMK set just doesn't quite touch it. And this isn't me complaining about the GMK set. Like, the GMK set is fine. It is exactly what it was supposed to be. Zamberman did a great job with it. But the SA set looks so much better than the GMK version.
Yeah. Oh man, now I'm starting to think about SA sets. One of my favorite sets still to this day, and a lot of people don't even know this about me, one of my favorite sets to this day is actually SA Godspeed. Definitely my favorite SA set. That set looks unbelievably good in person. Hate to type on it, but it looks so freaking good.
You're right, it does. Did you buy the GMK version?
No, because I know the GMK version is just not going to look as good.
I think it's shipping now, but I haven't seen it in real life.
It should be pretty close, yeah. I definitely want to see it, and maybe I'll try to pick up an extra or an aftermarket set depending on how it looks. But I just can't imagine it looking anywhere as good as the SA version looks.
Yeah. Chocolatier looks so good in SA. Carbon looks good in SA. I think you're probably going to be right about Godspeed looking much better in SA than it does in GMK. Yeah, it'd be interesting. I wonder if we should see a rerun of a lot of GMK sets in SA profile and see how they do.
Yeah, maybe we just take a little break from GMK while they kind of maybe catch up and get their new machines and staff working. And then maybe we go back to SA for a little bit and we try some of the colorways that we already have. We just put a little pause on
but we do still have some really exclusive SA group buys, right? Look,
sure.
I mean, this is kind of digressing a little bit, but there were people incredibly upset that they didn't get invited to SA Nautilus, and there was only like 100 sets sold. There were people that were incredibly upset they did not get invited to buy SA Olivia, and then it was being traded on the aftermarket for $700-800. There was a lot of people who didn't even know that SA Phantom was going to run, and it did kind of half in secret, half not. And then people will offer a crazy amount for SA Phantom right now. It's interesting when you see a GMK keycap set then running an SA profile. That's interesting.
Yeah. Japanerad is asking which GMK version looks better than the SA one, and I don't want to answer this right now because I want to kind of do a quick sponsor spot for our sponsors, and we can kind of move over to a Q&A segment where we can really start to tackle these before we head out. So we'll get back to that absolutely, because I also want to think about that because that's a really good question. But feel free to start getting some more questions in for us, guys. If you use the @TopClack tag, it helps us out quite a bit. We can pick the questions out from chat a lot easier. But just for a moment, we're going to talk about our sponsors while you guys start to get some of the questions flowing in, guys. So let me change my viewer. There we go. I was somehow not prepared for that. Okay. Anyways, first and foremost, we have...
Ed, what are you on about?
Well, I'm always prepared, Jay. I'm never unprepared in my life, especially during a Top Clack live stream. No issues ever. So first, we have the wonderful novel keys. You know them. You probably love them, as do we. They have lots of things going on right now, including GMK Dots Round 2, which just launched. So this was another set, I think, that started as an April Fool's joke, but really started to gain a lot of popularity and love after Round 1. So obviously, it was enough to warrant a Round 2, and if you missed out on that, then bam, there you go. You can get it again. Desk pads alongside that, unsurprisingly. Also in the GMK format, we see Mr. Sleeves Round 2, which is definitely one of the more popular GMK add-on kits we've had in the community. This is a really good one, too. It ran years ago, back when Nathan Kim, Sir Teha Types himself, was kind of on the rise of popularity, and now we're seeing it return. It's a very nice add-on kit. They also are still running the Box 75, which is a very unique 75% that we talked about.
I hear you have one coming now as well.
I do, yes. I just got tracking today on it. So I'm looking forward to this. Novel Keys, freaking way more wonderful than they need to be. Has sent one of these over to me. I believe I'm getting a black one. I have no idea any of the other configuration, but I think the keyboard itself is supposed to be black. So I'm going to be having an upcoming build stream on that coming up pretty soon. So very excited to try this out. We get to see how it feels and sounds, because I know, admittedly, honestly, you and I are both a little curious on how the foot system is going to both feel and sound, because it's almost a little worrisome. And whether it's going to
damage my desk.
Yeah, like it almost looks a little worrisome, but I'm really open-minded and I'm looking forward to trying it out, and hopefully it looks and sounds amazing, as I've been hearing it does. So
Yeah,
very much.
I'm really hoping that we get to keep it for long enough for you to send it to me to have a play with as well after I've built
That's
it.
yeah. I haven't asked if we get to keep it yet. I'm always afraid to ask that question because I hate to be presumptuous. So we'll have to.
I would assume not, but hopefully you
I
can keep it for a little bit and I can
yeah
have a play with it.
yeah. I'm definitely gonna send it to you if possible. So yeah, definitely that. Anyways, so alongside that, they do also have a cam set running, which is pretty interesting. We don't see very many cam sets, so it's always nice to kind of see a little diversity there. Super User is running, so if you're a fan of that, or maybe you just want to try something new, definitely check that out. And if you're buying something in stock, of which they have lots of things, switches, stabilizers, films, extra keycaps, stabilizers, you name it, they probably have it. You can use promo code CLACK, that's one word, and they'll get you 5% off your in-stock order. It'll also show that you love us or hate us. Just use the code.
Yeah. Moving over to our second sponsor of the day, it is the wonderful gentleman over at Kono.store. They have a few things going on for you right now, including a couple of GMK keycap sets, GMK Gateway, if you're a fan of Portal-themed video games, that might be something that's interesting to you, especially if you like blues and oranges together, designed by Smokey. As well as that, they've also got another GMK set in group buy right now called GMK Storm, which is a little bit more palatable for many people, of various shades of greys and blacks and nice colors, but with a gradient style that's horizontal rather than on a diagonal, so something a little bit different and some quite unique and interesting desk mats as well. Flipping over to EPBT, which we've talked about earlier on the show, there's actually two keycap sets running on Kono at the minute. There is Ramen Stop, which is a really cute set. I've got to be honest, I'm a really big fan of that personally. And Soju as well. So Ramen Stop is based on ramen, noodles, and all of those kind of good things. There's a ton of different novelties and a ton of different desk mats. It's a really, really cool, fun set. And as well as that, there's EPBT Soju as well, which is running as well right now, which we did talk a little bit more in detail about last week, but if you like greens and kind of creams and that kind of sort of thing, that might be the set for you. As well as that, if you're not looking for key sets and you're looking for switches, they do have EVO2 switches still on pre-order, so you can jump on the pre-order for those right now, and get your order in for those. They are somewhere when Brian finds them. There they are.
Yeah.
So you can jump in and order those as well. I don't think they've got too much left long on the pre-order scale, so if you do want them, be quick, guys.
Yes. All right, moving over to the wonderful KBD fans. They have a few things going on right now. One thing I do want to point out, which I have been every episode because I'm really interested in it, is these new stabilizers they have coming out, which look to be a slightly different kind of aesthetic and design. So hopefully those come out pretty well. Looking forward to getting my hands on some of those to test out. Barring that, they have a couple other things going on right now, including a new Enjoy PBT set called Be the One, which is kind of an interesting set because it's one of the IDE theme sets that we see a lot in GMK, but this time we're seeing it in PBT, which is kind of interesting. So if you're a fan of IDE theme sets, this could totally be for you. Or if you're a fan of Ramen Stop or Soju in the EPBT profile, and KBD fans is your preferred vendor, then those are both running here as well. Aside from that, they have lots of other stuff. It's definitely one of the biggest stores in the community, and they have a pretty heavy focus on inexpensive items. So if you're newer to the hobby, you're trying to ball out on a budget, don't have much to spend, and you're just looking for a nice starter board or something, they probably have you covered. They have lots of PCBs, cases, switches, plates, key sets. All for kind of a bargain, and sometimes they even have some cool things in their B-stock market. Oftentimes it's empty, like it is right now, but every now and then you can catch some pretty awesome deals. I've seen pretty nice high-profile cases, even just like simple stuff like tofu cases go for $40 to $45, with a very minor defect, like a scratch on the bottom, for example. So if you're not too worried about stuff like that, this is definitely a good place to shop.
Moving over to our final sponsor of the day, it is the wonderful Liandron. You may have seen him on stream last week, which we're still trying to fix the audio for. We'll get there, hopefully.
But hopefully you saw him live.
If we can fix it, we will. With his store, Mechanise.co. So Liandron actually talked a little bit about this on the show, but huge congratulations to him because he's actually opening up a rare retail keyboard store right in the heart of Oslo, in his home country of Norway. So it is a store that if you go on holiday there or you live in the area, you can go visit. Brian and I have talked about doing a road trip from mine through Europe up to Oslo to go and visit his store whenever COVID's over. So Brian's going to come to the UK, maybe check out a meetup here, and then we're going to head over to Oslo, do a bit of a driving trip, hopefully, in the future whenever we can. So big congratulations to Liandron for that. As well as that, just talking about the store at the minute, in stock he has some WT60D PCBs, which is arguably one of the best PCBs on the market right now for any 60% that you have. It offers a ton of features, ANSI, ISO, flex cuts, you name it, it's got it. Designed by Wilbur, VIA support, QMK support, anything you could need. It has it, all while looking great in that lovely ultramarine color that Liandron's famous for as well. As well as that, he also has the Ultramarine stabilizers and switches that are available in stock too. So the stabilizers made by Duroc, the switches are JWK, but same thing. And they have that Ultramarine colorway too, so you can have that whole matching look across your board. As well as that, he's also got the matching katakana desk mats in there as well, so you can pick those up too, which have the Mechanisk store written in katakana characters across the center of the desk mat. And I think he's got a blank version as well. I think I recall seeing a blank version on there.
Yeah, well, it has his logo on the bottom, but it's otherwise blank.
Yeah.
I want an ultra hot desk mat. I think that'd be really cool. Oof. It's also really worth pointing out right now that I don't think you can actually order from the store right now. It's technically down for a little bit while he makes some updates, some changes, and from what I hear is going to be launching even more products. So he's gearing up for a really big relaunch, and I'm looking forward to that. All right. Getting back to some of the questions, guys. Of course, keep the questions rolling in. We always end our shows with a Q&A segment. I'm going to scroll up to chat here. See, what did I miss? Shout out to Vogon real quick for the 500 tasty episode bits. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Sheesh. Okay. Questions.
Lots of people saying essay is photogenic and not nice to type on at the same time.
It's true. I hate typing on it, but gosh darn it, does it look beautiful for almost everything. Which is a good segue to get back to the question that we put on hold before the sponsor segment from Japanitrad, who did again ask which GMK version looks better than the essay one. So I spent a lot of time talking about how I think essay sets just look better than GMK sets, primarily due to the colors popping. But what set looks better in GMK? Because honestly, I don't know if I can think of one.
I only have one answer to it, and it's not a great one, but it's Penumbra. I vastly prefer GMK Penumbra to SA Penumbra. Okay. It's the only one I can think of.
I can see that. I've never been a Penumbra fan, personally. Oh, man. No, not Honeywell. Honeywell looks amazing in SA.
It does.
It looks
it's
so
a great
good.
GMK set as well, but you're right, it does look amazing.
It's great. It's a phenomenal GMK set, but man, it does look good in SA. What else?
Do you know what
there?
I would really
Calm
like
Depths?
to see in SA?
No, Calm Depths. SA looks better in Calm Depths too.
Yeah, Calm Depths SA looks better. That was the first SA group I ever joined, by the way. But do you know what set I would like to see in SA that I think would look great in SA? Hamon. I think SA Hamon would look stunning. Those reds, that glossy coloring.
Yeah. Rob says nuke
Zambu,
data.
Get on it, man. I know you watch.
What? Zabumon doesn't watch Top Clack. What are you talking about?
Well, you'd be surprised.
Really? I don't think I've ever seen him in chat. I haven't seen him in chat.
He hasn't been in chat for a long time. He used to be in chat when I first joined the show.
Yeah, I mean, he's a busy man. I'm sure he's got other things going on. Rob says nuclear data. I think nuclear data looks way better in SA.
So good in SA.
It looks really good in SA.
And we haven't seen the GMK version IRL yet either. I don't think it's shipped yet, has it? I might be wrong.
No, it looked fine. It looked fine. I wasn't the biggest fan of it, the renders at least in GMK, but that's just how it goes. Japan and Chat is also asking. We can keep thinking about this, and obviously, chat keep doing this as well. But just moving on to another quick question, also from Japan and Chat. What would be the properties of the perfect profile for you? So if we had, this is kind of the dream profile question, right? What would our ideal profile be? For me, this is really hard because I'm not a terribly creative person, and I feel like I like a lot of other people kind of just default to like Cherry because it's so comfortable. So in my mind, it's like Cherry's that pinnacle because I've just kind of put it on a pedestal, which I shouldn't. But that's just where I'm comfortable right now, and I don't know how I would change that to make it even better because I'm so used to that just being the top for me,
I think if I had to make a guess, I would really like to see a true double shot PBT keycap that was a mix of DSS and cat. So the smoothness of
Ooh.
cat on the sculpt of DSS, but true double shot PBT. So a PBT keycap
Ooh.
with a PBT inset. I think that would be my dream set. I may hate it actually when I try it. I don't know, but that's
That
like in
sounds
my head. That's
amazing.
what I think would be the dream set for me.
No, that sounds super
Um,
good. Yeah, no,
that's where I think my
that
head's
sounds
at.
really. I love the texture of cat. I think cat feels
So
amazing.
nice, so nice. It's one of the big things I like about cat, and it is a really nice
It's
profile.
like what like now. Like it's like I know most people are gonna be like, oh, Insto and CRP and PSP and like great PBT. Don't get me wrong, legendary and probably at the top of the game too. But when it comes to like when I think of PBT, when I think of the PBT texture, my mind defaults automatically to cat as like being what I want out of a PBT texture. Man, I wish I had a better answer for that question.
Yeah, it's a difficult one.
That's a
It's a
difficult
difficult one.
question. Yeah. I've never spent a whole lot of time thinking of like what my dream profile would be like. Maybe it would be wildly different than anything that we have on the market right now, and I just can't picture it.
Yeah, maybe.
Glacier says, which Yuri do you prefer? That's a good one. I think I actually do prefer
Ooh.
GMK Yuri over SA Yuri.
No, you missed the real answer. The real answer is DCS Yuri.
Oh, that's right. There is a DC. Is that
There's a
MX or is that
DCS version.
Alps?
It's Alps,
Alps,
but
right?
that
Yeah.
is the best looking version in my opinion.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean I like all versions of Yuri, but I think I like GMK Yuri the most. So that might be the one that I actually like GMK more than SA. And I remember specifically when I had that thought too. I think it was a 2017 Winter Seattle meetup, and there was a gentleman, a local gentleman there that had I forgot which TKL it was. It might have been like an OTD or something, but he had GMK Yuri with the Cyrillic Mono Legend kit, and it
Nice.
was stunning. It looks so good in GMK.
Yeah, I'd kind of agree. I'd kind of agree. Yuri's a nice colorway. Like it's just a good colorway. In fact, that reminds me. I lent my set to a friend. I need to get that back.
Japanatrat with another question. Obviously, everyone's free to ask questions here. Japanatrat, though, totally fine, is asking, slightly off topic, do you know if one wants to get a different surface finish, would that require new molds, or is that a post-processing step?
Depends on the manufacturer. Is the answer. It
Yeah.
really depends on the manufacturer. If it, so, just some examples of that. So DSS and DSA are part of the mold, and actually, the original the people complain about DSS because it's so rough. DSA was originally the same roughness. It's just that the molds have been reused so many times that they're actually starting to smooth over a little bit. But yeah, it depends on the manufacturer. And the way to tell is look at the sides of the keycap as well as the top and see if there's a distinct difference between the two. If there is, it usually means that it's part of the mold. If there isn't, it usually means that it's a part of a post processing because they do the whole keycap. That's not always a hard and fast rule, but it might give you a bit of direction.
Nice. Vogon is asking, F and J with nub or concave in GMK, which do you prefer? So what are our preferred homing keys, Jay?
I really like the nipple version.
Nipple. I was hoping you weren't gonna say that so I
Yeah,
could say it, but it's totally true. Ever since GMK 8008, I'm a nipple guy. I think the GMK nipple is way
it,
better than the nub or the scooped.
it's not from GMK that I like it. It's actually from AEK profile, which I
Oh
have
yeah,
here on this board.
it's a
This
bigger
has
nub,
nipple home.
I think.
You're not going to be able to see it, and it's actually on the wrong keys. It's actually on the D. I don't know if you can see that just there, but it's
Yep.
D and then K. But it does have the nipple in the middle. That's where I like it from.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, for GMK, I gotta prefer the nipple. Um, but you did ask nub or concave, so I guess it'd be remiss if we didn't do that. I feel like I went through a change. I used to use scooped. I was all about the scooped for the first couple years. And then I really started coming around to the nub. I feel like this could really be taken out of context.
It could.
Nubs and
It could.
nipples.
I'm surprised it hasn't come up that people have clipped the conversation to share these
I
bits.
don't
But
know.
yeah.
Nobody, never clip out of context, please. Unless it's just that hilarious. Sheesh. Yeah, I'm a nipple kind of guy. But if I had to pick between nub and scooped, I'd go with the nub. I used to be more about the scoop,
I'd go with scoops.
but now I'm nub.
I'd probably go with scoops. I tend to use scoops more often than not. In fact, the only set that I can... Oh, no, I'll lie. I actually have 4 keyboards on my desk. One's Apple, so it doesn't count. But of the 3 that have GMK on, 2 have got nubs and one's scooped. I think I prefer scoops to bars, I think. But, like, my desk is telling me otherwise, so...
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, let's check.
Tempest says, wait, 8008 has the nipple? That's like part of the theme, right? The fact that it has nipple key. That's like kind of the... I don't want to say meme because that has a negative connotation, but it's kind of like one of the jokes of the set. I actually have it right behind me. I'll grab
it. Brian got into his collection of boards there.
I don't know how you can see this on my webcam, but little nipply there.
Yeah, I do have 800 on a board, but it's right over the other side of the room.
They're very small. They're very small nips, to be fair, but they are nips nonetheless. And I think it's just nice. It looks nice. It feels totally fine. Love it. Anyways, back to the questions. Grillad is asking, can you compare CAT to OSA? I cannot, just because I've never actually used OSA profile. What about you, Jay?
I haven't used it either. I think I have a set, but I've never put it on a board.
All right, so sorry, Grillad, we've failed you on this one. Hopefully in the future we can...
Hopefully someone in chat can help you. Hopefully someone in
chat can help you. Love the nubs. I like all 3, honestly. Yeah, they're all usable, right? It's not like I dislike using a GMK set because it has a certain homing key. Like, I'll happily use any of them. Just like a lot of things in this hobby, we like to split hairs and have preferences and argue over the most minute of differences in plastics and metals. That's why we're here.
Yeah. Speaking of which, actually, new metals. I've just joined a group buy for a board that's made out of a new material not seen in keyboards before, which I'm really excited about.
New materials are one of the most exciting parts of this hobby. Absolutely. Frothy KK is asking, what was the board with the AEK keycaps on it? Is that your Borsdorf?
Oh, yeah. This is one of my 2 Borsdorfs. This is the one that has Brown Alps in it, and it's divine. It's one of my favorite boards to type on. It's just so nice.
Discord noise gate isn't picking it up, but that's okay.
Is it not?
No. It's because it's because we're talking over Discord and there's a noise gate.
I promise you, it sounds great. I promise you, it sounds
great. I believe it. Yeah, I completely believe it. Tutich is asking, what do you think of new manufacturing processes for keycaps? For example, DSA 1930 from Ulium, dip dyed, dye sub, laser engraved. Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Obviously, dye sub and laser engraving are nothing necessarily new to keycaps. We've been doing that for a bit. What is dip dyeing?
It's exactly what it sounds like.
Is that exactly what it sounds like?
Okay. Plastic in a dye and it dyes the plastic. That's pretty much what it's. It's a way of dyeing it. But I don't know if you've seen the keycaps that Ulium is talking about. He's talking about that Ulium's done. I did see some pictures on Instagram the other day. Let me see if I can find it, because you can actually see like a 3D contour to the design on there.
Interesting.
Let me find it. He did post. I'm sure I saw it on Instagram.
As far as the actual, while you look for that, as far as the actual question goes, what do we think about new manufacturing processes? Just like new materials, I love it. I love seeing new things, whether they fail or succeed, because chances are we're going to learn something from it, and our community is going to move forward with new knowledge and new experience, and that alone is almost worth trying most things in this hobby.
I've just dropped a link to them. it doesn't really show what I wanted to, but there's like a 3D effect. So if you look at the top left keycap, which is Ulium's kind of logo design, which I think is based on his avatar, they are very much kind of, you can see the sculpt. There was another picture, I'm sure it might have been on Canon Keys actually or something. I don't know. I did see another picture. I can't find it right now, but it's very much contoured, and you can see the 3D shape. Oh yes, it is on Canon Keys. Hold on, here you go. So you can actually see here in this second one, and Deem Attack got there just before me. You can see on that second picture there that the keycaps themselves have actually got a dip into it. If you look closely enough, you can see that it's actually it's recessed into the cap.
Yeah. Interesting. You're talking about the actual like legend, right? The design.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at that front cap there, that foremost one, the skin area is actually recessed lower than the beard and the eyes. You can see that it's physically deeper into the keycap.
That's gonna be interesting. I think that's a really interesting idea, but it'll certainly affect the texture, like as you type. Like you'll feel it as you type, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. That's gonna be that's gonna be a nightmare for people that have like dirty or sweaty hands that type.
Yeah, will they fill it with grime over time?
Yeah, like
I don't know.
These might be not very fun to clean. I'll tell you that right now. But they certainly look really interesting. Like on the first picture you linked, this is like these legends are real, right? Like the shading and the coloring on these, this is like actual what they're going for.
Yeah, that's what they look like. Yeah, that's what they look
like.
It's
like a comic book. It's like the old maybe he's kind of going with like the old remember the old Adam West Batman series? He's going for like the POW, you know. Oh,
maybe. I don't know. It's that whole kind of 30s comic book feel. I think they're going for
that's it's pretty. They look really cool. Yeah, I would certainly like to try them. Sheesh. Okay, where were we here? Tempest is asking FR4 plate, not G10. More colors. Wait, this might not have been for us. This might have replied to someone else. Sorry. Not very many questions in chat, which is totally fine. Totally fine. Glacier says Steamboat Mickey style. Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking of too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting.
It wasn't Mickey then. It was Steamboat Willie, wasn't it? I'm sure it was a slightly different name back then.
Yeah, Steamboat Willie. That sounds accurate. I feel like I should know this. Steamboat Willie. There we go. Well, all right. We are caught up on questions. What do you think, Jay? Should we start wrapping it up and find someone to raid?
I think so. Yeah, we should probably do that and find someone to raid. I have no idea who's online though right now.
Doing a quick look to see who's online for us to raid.
Tehe's on. Netflix is on.
Metclicks. Let's see. Let's head over to Makers and Crafting. I feel like I'm always following all the like keyboard streamers, and like I go to Makers and Crafter, and there's 3 more people I've never seen or heard of in my life.
There is always new keyboard streamers.
Yes. Okay, I'm only seeing Teha and Netclicks actually, unless I'm blind.
Well, up to you then. I'll let you make the decision where we go.
I feel like it's weird rating someone with so many more viewers than us. Right? Is it weird? Is it weird? Should we just raid?
No, because we've raided Metclicks quite a few times recently.
That's true.
3 or 4
times. Yeah,
I think we should probably do Tehe.
We'll raid Nathan. Because we like Nathan anyways. All right, guys. Well, we're gonna be heading out. We're gonna be heading over to Teha Types channel. That's where the raid is. So stick around for that and raid, and let's go say something wholesome. Let's spam his chat with hearts and wholesomeness.
Very nice.
I'd really appreciate it if you guys did that with us. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and queue up this raid. But thank you guys so much for watching. Look below the stream. You can find links to a bunch of our outlets, including our Discord, most importantly. You can come join and you can talk about, what your favorite taco is, or, some keyboards, or, video games. There's a little something for everyone there. So hopefully you can hang out there and have a good time and feel comfortable. And heck yeah. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, guys. Any closing thoughts, Jay?
No, just come back on Sunday because I'll be streaming a double Iron 165 build, standard edition
Ooh.
and limited edition. So really excited for that.
Nice. No concrete timing yet, but I am probably going to be streaming on Monday. More on that in the Discord announcements page, linked below. I'll be putting up an announcement soon, deciding what I'm doing. But I'm trying to stream on Monday as well. Yes. Who is this Teha Types you're talking about? Living under a rock,
Brand
you
new,
don't know
I know.
Teha Types, right? All right, incoming raid. Let's get this going, guys. And we'll say something wholesome, even if it is quite literally just something wholesome. Spam his chat with hearts. And have a good one, guys. Let's head over there.
See you guys.